2020. Yes, it's happening on Wednesday, which is unusual due to a very rare vacation day for me. So thank you for joining us on this Wednesday. A quick reminder, if you want to support the live stream, a great way to do that is to follow the live stream on LinkedIn. Our guest today is Stan Bonev, former VeraCloud's founder and currently VP of Cybersecurity and AI at Blue Label. Welcome, Stan.
Thank you, Mike.
Before we dive into this, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got here?
Sure, I'll be happy to. So my career started right after grad school. I started working at Microsoft in program management capacity. After I spent about 8 years there with a colleague of mine from Microsoft, we decided to move on the entrepreneurship path, and we started VeraClouds. I was the co-founder and the CEO for almost 10 years. And this is where we met each other. If you remember, Mike, we created an integration between our two services somewhere around 2016, probably. So I sold VeraClouds in November of last year. And now I started the next chapter where currently I work at the Blue Label Labs, which is an AI consulting company.
Nice. And for those of the audience who don't remember VeraClouds, this was a service that enabled you to sort of search if a password and username credential combination had been compromised or somewhere else. And so it was really useful for determining not just that a certain username was compromised, but like a specific credential combination. And I'm sure it has, whoever bought it is going to see that's going to be useful in growing. Passwords aren't going away, unfortunately. They're still around.
Yes, yes.
So now you're spun into AI, and the topic today is actually adapting existing identity infrastructure to manage AI agent identities. And so the first question I have is actually, like, how do you see, where's the business value for supporting AI identity in enterprise systems? Like, how are businesses, is this a real thing that enterprises are dealing with?
Oh, definitely it is. So the main issue is that the enterprises, they, for many years, they have been managing user identities and machine identities in a certain way with certain systems. And this is pretty straightforward process. They use for humans, they use the OAuth and OIDC. And now these AI agents come and they're not exactly workloads, they're not exactly humans, and they don't really fit in the actual identity framework. And on the top of that, the actual AI providers or agentic AI systems, they have their own way of authenticating their users and provide resources. So this is this particular challenge that comes if you are an enterprise. How can you manage all of those AI agents that are spawning every day, and then in the future they will be so many. Personally, I think that at some point in the next 3 to 5 years, there will be more AI agents, more AI agent identities than human identities. And then the question will be how are you going to manage them and their access to resources. So that's currently the main issue. And that's why I think the business value, to your question, the business value is that you can allow organizations to be able to be a lot more efficient and to provide a higher level of security to their organizations by finding a way to manage the AI agent identities.
So what's the first step? Like, what are companies doing right now So, to try and manage this, like where are they, and what are sort of the first things that they're doing to try and address it?
So currently, there is no standard approach. So that's really the very interesting moment in time where, for example, there are no standards that are specifically designed for AI agents. OAuth 2.1 is working towards making this easier. I know that OIDC is also working on that. At the same time, at the OpenID Foundation, there are some work groups that are currently starting, and they are also tasked at aiming into this problem. There is, of course, the big MCP community that is also trying to tackle that problem. And the last portion are all of the big LLM providers, such as OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Claude, and all of the others, which offer their own way of managing user identities. And that's really one of the things about I see a fragmentation in the marketplace at the moment. For example, if you are a Microsoft customer, and Microsoft did a good job as putting AI agent identities as first-class citizens. So if you are within their their infrastructure, then you don't have any issues. But the issues come if you decide to create an agent that works also with other infrastructures, with other organizations. Then there is no this interoperability between passing either the AI agent identity or some of the resources it can access and some of the permissions. So I can talk a lot more, but I want to see if you have any comments or something
Yeah,
along
thank
those.
you.
I'm sure that you also thought about this, so I'm curious what you think.
So of course, as an enterprise, they have one of everything. They have a lot of different systems, a lot of cloud providers. So it's not no one's in 100% Microsoft world. And an enterprise traditionally has been centrally managed. I'm sorry, identity.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of governance and traditional IAM tools, a lot of it is very centralized.
Yes.
And how is this going to work in a more federated environment where we have identities that are managed by the enterprise, we have external identities, we have agents that are acting externally? Like, how is this going to work in a federated world?
So there are different approaches, and different organizations are offering different ways. So one of them, I would just mention some of them, because again, there is nothing that is currently the overall overarching standard. Probably very
Yeah.
soon we will start working on those, but there isn't at the moment. So one way is delegated authority. Currently, the way how AI agents are provisioned, they're provisioned most often as either users or workloads. And
Hmm.
I don't like either of those, because the workloads, they constrain a lot what an agent can do. They're not really made for non-deterministic workflows. And at the same time, if agents are set up as users, it is more, I don't like the fact of impersonation. So technically, this is impersonation of the user. And it's
Yeah.
very difficult down the road for all of the services to know if they are talking to a live person or an AI agent. So the delegated authority, what it does is it introduces a new token. It's called a delegation token, and the delegation token contains the user ID token, the user who delegated some resources, or some of the resources that the AI agent can access, and then
Uh-huh.
AI agent token, which describes what the AI agent is. And then this delegation token has those two tokens plus some additional metadata about what exactly that particular AI agent can do and will do. So when you put all those three together and put them into a token, then you can use the same flow that you use for, let's say, OAuth 2.1 or 2.0, and then just send a different type of token.
Right. We've had a number of discussions on this live stream about this challenge of delegation. George Fletcher and Jen Schreiber, a couple of episodes back, we focus on delegation, and it's a really tricky problem. It's really, I wonder if it's possible to accomplish this with just one token, with one Uber token, or if it would take a number of tokens to actually represent this delegation pattern that you're thinking about. I don't know. I saw in the reading you assigned, in the homework you gave a very interesting reference to I guess a graduate, a small company or researcher who's published an idea for an open ID profile for agentic AI. But it still seems like that's a long way off, though. The ability to use the standard to represent the identity portion of this delegation that needs to happen, and then to represent the delegation authority properly scoped for whatever the intent is. This is really could be a long time to figure it out. The description of the episode, I think, was talking about like how do we use existing identity infrastructure to manage AI identities. So what are the short-term approaches, assuming that we don't have this nirvana state of a really well-defined OAuth, protocol schema and trust model that would enable true delegation. So what is it? What do we do with our existing infrastructure, and how does that fit into our solution right now?
So with the existing infrastructure, it's not ideal. You need to go one of the two routes, either to go to manage AI agents as humans and to assign them a human identity, or to be able to, if they are more straightforward AI agents, to probably assign them as workloads. And those are unfortunately the two ways you can do it right now. In addition, actually, this is if you want to use standards.
Yeah.
But if you want to use the native permissioning and authentication of the actual AI tools or LLMs, then you have a little bit of a better luck, because some of them, like Microsoft, they already have the AI agents as first-class citizens. So those are the really, I don't want to be in identity right now, because it's really very difficult to identify the direction where you want to go. Do you want to go with standards and kind of have something that is not very good at the moment, but with the hope that in the future all of those standards bodies will catch up and they will come up with something good? Or you go with what the LLMs are currently offering and stay with them, which at the moment it will be better than using standards, but at the same time, probably even those organizations at some point, they will embrace a standard when this interoperability becomes important. Yeah, go ahead.
So, when I have this conversation a lot about agent identity, what I discover is that a lot of times people aren't concerned about the identity portion as much as they are about the authorization portion.
Yes.
And so even if you're passing the identity as a person that maybe has a claim that tells you that this isn't really a human, this is actually an AI agent, and other metadata about that account, let's say, that the policy model behind that identity layer doesn't really support or is not flexible enough to really express the types of policies that we need to control, which actions you can do on which resources, and how that those policies connect across multiple interacting layers. One agent uses a tool that calls another agent or another tool. So maybe you can count. Is the question is the constraint really the identity layer, or is the bigger constraint really the policy authorization layer?
It is I would think the policy authorization layer is the one that currently is more important, and the one that will be a little bit more difficult to tackle. There were different proposals for different ways how this can be done, including introducing new type of tokens that are not time-based, but action-based or activity-based. So you can do certain task 10 times, and after that, this is for how long you can use this token. And the idea there is some of the AI agents, they would require more time to perform a task because they're waiting for input from other agents. But a person can estimate how much times of certain activities will need to take place before the whole process is completed. So there are different ways to think about the way how the a resource component and authorization can work. At the same time, if we think about, again, 3 to 5 years, and when we think about agents that spin other agents to do certain jobs, then this becomes even more difficult. The way how I see the future is that now we have these supervisory agents, an AI agent that supervise other agents. And usually they are just two layers. You have the supervisory agent, and then you have the actual agents that go and fetch the resources or use different tools. In the future, this can be multiple layers, like a pyramid of layers of agents, and some of the agents spin other agents or they supervise other agents. And then the question that you posed becomes even more exacerbated, because all of the resources that they can access, all of the permissions that they will need to do that becomes even more critical than the actual identity or the authentication. I think the authentication and the identity, we can solve this even to some extent with the existing systems and tools. Yeah. But really this dynamic resource allocation will be something that will require a little bit more time and a little bit more thinking.
Yeah, I think you're right that the existing, let's say, protocols and standards that we have could probably be used to define an agentic AI identity system, but not without, but interoperability couldn't be achieved without some type of profiling. And so, for example, we could use a JWT to represent an agent identity, but what would the claims of that JWT be? And if we're going to make policy about those claims, we would need those claims to be the same, across systems. And we don't have any like really good profiles for what's the metadata for an agentic AI attestation, or if it's proving its identity, by control of a private key. So I don't know that I agree that the standards that we have today are really probably sufficient to tackle this, but not without a fair amount of profiling.
Yes, we will need to do this. My point is that the profiling is relatively straightforward because just the different entities or standards body they need to agree with. You see the one a white paper that I provided that was
Hmm.
about OIDC
It's
for
a
agent.
protean, a very early embryonic.
That's
I
right.
wouldn't call it a, yeah.
It's a very
It's
early
a
and embryonic, but what we need to do is we need to get the a little bit more people to weigh into it. We need to put it into the framework of a certain standards body and to make sure that it is compatible with all of the existing protocols. So this is doable, but for me, the actual resource allocation is trickier because this is a moving target. We don't know what the agents in the next 2 years will be, so that we can build that particular resource allocation for them and create a standards or yeah standards for that, because we don't know what they're going to be. We are just at the beginning. You probably you would agree with me that the first agents that AI agents that started, it was probably during the summer of last year. It was not that long ago. They're still in
yeah.
infancy, and there will be we'll see a lot more with so many more uses and applications. And at the moment, we don't know really what they could be, so that we can make this portion the right way.
A lot of times I think people confuse automation with autonomy. And some of the agents, like if I tell
Mhm.
an agent to book a flight to New York for me the next time it drops below $200, that's automation, right? But if I
Mhm.
tell AI, to say to AI, book a trip for me the next time you think it would be good to travel to the East Coast, um, or I don't know, it's just something that requires more creativity, then maybe it would be more actually autonomy. But we don't seem to really be at the point where we're talking about autonomy for the most part, because I think everyone's terrified of actually, you know, really giving
Mhm.
birth to truly autonomous software processes, um, like HAL. Everyone's terrified of HAL from Space Odyssey, um,
Yeah.
2001 Space Odyssey, I think. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? And is if the policies for automation are difficult, how would we even begin to discuss the policies, how we would govern actual autonomy, and and is that something that we even feel like we're getting close to?
So that's an excellent question. That's an excellent question. That's the other, for example, big problem in agentic AI. Currently, I will start with currently what is the situation and what we see with our customers and the projects uh, where we build AI agents for customers. In many of the cases, in probably almost all of the cases, they want human in the loop, which, as you know, is at some point when the AI agent reaches a certain stage, a human receives a message and then they need to approve the next stage or
Sounds
the
like a
output.
workflow.
The way how the industry is managing this autonomy of the AI agents, or basically how it is curbing the. Well, I didn't think this is possible, but I guess it is.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, I don't know if I'll edit this or not. It was a pretty short drop. We joke here with the guests before about what happens if we drop. Um, but let's just pick up from the point of the question was, um, the difference between automation and autonomy. And you mentioned that we have a human in the loop sometimes to have a check on autonomous behavior, which sounds sort of like the agentic portion of it might be as part of a workflow, where a human then gets to say, "Oh, should I approve this thing that the agent wants to do to provide a level of governance?" Um, and that sounds a lot of like we're currently addressing this through workflows. But are the tools support that? And what are some of the pressures that are being put on those tools to support this workflow?
So currently, if we look at all of the enterprise AI projects, the overwhelming majority has a human in the loop. There are very few AI agents that perform without having a human in the loop at certain point. And this is to some extent those enterprises to manage risk, because there are different risks that could happen if the AI agents are autonomous and they spend from, for example, an AI agent spending a lot of resources. Let's say you are an AWS customers and it spans 1,000 EC2 servers for some reason, or if there is, the other one is hallucination. If there is a hallucination and then passes down the road to the next agent some information that is not correct, there are legitimate reasons for having this human in the loop. Ideally, going forward, we will become better and better, and there will be less humans in the loop, because this is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest problem with the AI agents. Scaling. Currently, you can imagine if you have an organization with, and many of them, they already, some of the big ones, they have 500 or even 1,000 AI agents working. And if you have a human in the loop in all of those agents performing, you need to have full-time people that will need to approve those actions or the output of the AI agents. And assume in 3 to 5 years, when so many organizations are saying, hey, we're moving into this agentic workflow for even for the internal operations, it will be impossible to have enough humans that really approve those operations. So this means that we will need to have other agents that will approve some of those actions or the work of the other agents. And then there probably will be another agent that will approve the work of the other approving agents at some point. There will be very interesting cases in this case. But to your point about the automation, it is at this point it is very difficult to have a fully autonomous AI agents that perform relatively a large number of tasks that are relatively sophisticated, which, for example, get output of another AI agents. Then they do something, they pass their output to another AI agents. In many of those cases, there is a human in the loop at this point.
But what are your thoughts about audit logging? Because it seems like there's going to be new challenges to create sort of a record of all of these delegations and human in the loop approvals. Do you see new challenges around sort of governing and auditing the agent's behavior?
So personally, I'm not that much concerned, because currently there are already services that track very well each of the actions of the AI agents. For example, this is one of the things that we offer to our customers. They can see everything, every step, and the reasoning behind every step of the AI agents, and they can audit that. So that's to some extent a good thing. Again, we will run into the issue, who is going to be able to review all of those logs? So the production of the logs is not the problem. The problem is really the review of those logs.
Need an AI agent to review the logs.
Probably. And another
Yeah.
AI agent to make sure that this AI agent reviewed properly the logs. This was
Something
more on the joke side, but at some point, that's what I'm trying to tell people. There will be agents that do the work for other agents, and there will be this really like a pyramid scheme, which brings us back to the identity and the authorization of all of those agents that work autonomously.
you mentioned earlier that a lot of the security um, paradigms that we have trouble working with non-deterministic actions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you dig a little bit more into what you meant there by that?
So if we think about workloads, you have a pretty deterministic actions. You have one service that access a database or another resource. It's pretty straightforward. You know what it is, and pretty much not that many things that unexpected things that can happen. With AI agents, the benefit is that they can access different resources, they can reason, and they can access other resources if they need to. And in this case, this is where the issue becomes, because if you want to make this AI agent infrastructure more secure, you need to go more on the deterministic route, which will limit the value of what the AI agents can do. On the other hand, of course, if you want to let the agent go wild and produce some results that you even haven't thought about, then in this case, you're running the risk that you don't know what exactly the agent will do. This is more like, to some extent, what reminds me in cybersecurity. You have user experience versus security, and then all companies, they balance user experience versus security. In this
Mm-hmm.
case, it's to some extent similar, because you have the deterministic approach versus non-deterministic, and both of them, each of them will deliver different outcome.
So you're saying that if we give people a web form, we really know what's going to happen and a flow in the web.
Mm-hmm.
But if we give people like an input box and they can type anything, like who knows what it could be? Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, this is a simplified version of that. Because again, in the future, now, in let's say in the future, AI agents, they will be able, let's say they use some, there will be MCP or MCP v2, where there will be 1,000 different servers that have access to 50,000 different tools and resources. And you have an agent that you authorize to access all of those 1,000 servers that can have access to those 50,000 tools. You can get probably amazing output of that agent. At the same time, it will be very difficult for you to know what this agent will do, at least probably at the beginning.
So on the policy side, we have a similar issue where we could have deterministic or non-deterministic policies. So Rego, for example, the policy syntax used by OPA, Open Policy Agent,
Mm-hmm.
is non-deterministic because it's a programming language, an almost Turing complete programming language that gives you a lot of flexibility in expressing policies.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the Cedar side, we have it's not Turing complete. It's specifically constrained to make the policies deterministic. What do you think is desirable? We mentioned that there's a lot of challenge in creating policies to bound the behavior of these AI agents. What do you think would be a preferable approach to the policy side, to go with more flexibility with non-deterministic policies, or more deterministic policies, so we know what we've actually authorized and that those are safe policies?
So there are two sides of that coin. The first one is my personal opinion, and then probably what might actually happen. So my personal opinion, I'm more on allowing AI agents to do more and to be more on the non-deterministic side of things. At the same time, when we start building a standard, and I can tell you from experience, I have been for the last 8 years part of the OpenID SSF shared signals framework, and I see how the whole process works for adopting a new protocol or coming up with a new protocol. And there are so many competing interests that come into play. And in this case, I think that there will be some large organizations and their representatives that will be advocating more to have more deterministic approach. Even last month, I spoke with somebody um, uh, who is the head of the standards organizations of one of the big companies in our space, and she suggested that probably a better way to manage user identities is to manage them as workflows. So for me, this is to some extent an indication that some of the large organizations, they will try to be more on the safe side and try to be more closer to some existing paradigms and uh, some existing workflows that they can follow, rather than letting the agents go wild, which actually could be something that the actual LLM companies such as Google, OpenAI, I would think they would prefer to let the agents go wild. So we'll see. It's a very interesting dynamic. To your previous point, all of this legislation currently is still in its infancy. We're many actually standards bodies now, they're trying to come up with different versions of different standards and to come up even with something new. And probably in the next 6 months to a year, we will know where things are going. And if you are an identity professional, if you are the CISO or the VP of identity, then you will know a little bit better where to put your bets. At the moment, I'm not sure.
That's an interesting point to make, because I was just about to ask, what are the biggest obstacles for getting buy-in from the security teams at enterprises to either use existing IAM systems to manage agents, or to adopting new agent security paradigms?
I think, based on my experience working in the enterprise space for the last 10 years and trying to sell products to enterprise, I think you are right. Those organizations, they will prefer to use and update the existing frameworks, the existing flows, and not that much embarking on new ones. I would expect the smaller companies, and especially the startups, they will be the ones that will embark on those new things.
What do you think are the policies that are really going to break their existing model? So just speculating on, like, oh, what are they going to do about this or that? Do you have any thoughts about what are some of the agentic flows that maybe have huge business values that might be drivers for innovation?
Well, the drivers for innovation in organizations, they will probably, I would think of them in two ways. The first one is something that can save money and something that can make them money. Usually those are the two ways and the two reasons why organizations adopt something. Definitely, for example, interesting project. I will give you an example of an interesting project that we're currently working with a prospect. It is about the approval of access to different systems and services by employees. The issue that this organization has is that it takes a lot of time and approval, at least by 2 or 3 people, when a new employee joins the company and needs to have access to different services that are not part of the standard package. And in this case, it takes between 10 to 30 business days this employee to be able to get access to those services. And of course, you can imagine for 30 days, this is a lost value that this new employee is not doing much. And of course, in some large companies, this is not a problem. But for me, as a former startup owner, to have somebody on the payroll for 30 days doing nothing, this is just not good at all. And that's where the some of the value comes. AI agent can be able to see the request, understand the request, see if this particular employee falls into policy compared to policies, and then from there give the access. So this particular flow, instead of 30 days or 10 days, depending on the app, it can become in minutes. This employee can be up and running in minutes. So those are the cases, in this case, with saving money, that can work. The other one, of course, the flip side of the coin is making money and being able to identify opportunities. For example, another project that the company has worked is for a commercial real estate company to identify sites that they can buy based on certain requirements. Usually that process was taking 2 weeks or so. And now, by connecting to the different services, this is something that takes hours. So there are so many use cases that can really help AI agents shine. So I feel that based on that, the industry will need to adjust itself and try to provide a good ways to authenticate and authorize AI agents and make them first-class citizens.
The pigeons are telling us it's time to go to last thoughts. Any last thoughts or conclusions, or you want to tell us about Blue Label? You have a couple of seconds.
Sure, I can do that. So we are at the moment in a very exciting time where we can be the part of building this new future of AI. And I would like to suggest to our viewers to look at the different opportunities, how they can contribute to different standards bodies, from OpenID to FIDO to so many others that are currently coming up with different standards. Let's try to build this future together. And finally, about Blue Label Labs, we help organizations who started the AI journey to be able to accelerate it. We have a lot of experience over many projects, and with Blue Label, they can just buy time. We can help them accelerate their AI journey.
Yeah, there's a lot of expertise is needed in this area for sure. Well, I'm happy to announce the next episode. This one's been a long time in the scheduling. Neha Rungta is one of the senior leaders at Amazon behind Cedar. And she and some of her colleagues recently wrote a paper on Cedar versus Rego versus OpenFGA, which we're going to discuss on the next episode. So please join that. Neha is one of the gurus of the industry, and we're really happy to be able to invite her to this. With that, I will say thank you, audience. Thank you, Stan, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Mike. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.